What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel and check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on a recent podcast that I was watching, Jason Whitlock and Coach JB, right? And Jason Whitlock, the podcast was about like who is at fault for the poor quarterback play that's going on in the NFL. Is it the black quarterbacks, or is it the culture that they come from, or and so I want to play this podcast and play the audio from it because I disagree with everything that Jason Whitlock is saying on it. And the reason I disagree is you can't, if any organization or any agency that's hiring young people, you can't blame the kids that you're bringing in if anything go wrong. And that's because it is up to the organization or the agency or whatever professional team or like I said, or professional business that they work for. It's up to them to set the standard. And if the recruit or the kid don't reach that standard, then they can't play. It's, you just can't do that. And so Jason Whitlock, and I'm gonna play the audio, and I'm gonna push back a little bit on what Coach JB says because I agree with some of what he said, but then some of it I just want to push back on that too. But to start out with Jason Whitlock is you cannot blame say like if they're allowing black quarterbacks only to rely on, for instance, to rely on their athleticism, and they're not teaching black quarterbacks how to think the game and the intricacies of the game. That's not the kid's fault. If the kid is an exceptional athlete, that's cool, but you merge that athleticism with the academic side of the football game, because football is a very complicated sport, right? Most of us, we watch football. We've been watching football for years, and we don't know, like what they're saying when they're yelling out plays, and we don't know different defense. Some people do, but most people don't, right? But if we had to, either we were calling the games or if we were playing the games, then we would have to learn the game. And that's what has to be done with these quarterbacks. If you think a quarterback has an exceptional talent, like a Lamar Jackson, for example, right? If you feel like he's only relying on his athleticism, then he needs to, not only he should want to learn the game, but the coaches should demand that he learn the game, because that's the only way he's going to be able to survive and advance. Because you have guys in the NFL that are very intelligent, and it's more than just the physical aspects of it, right? I always say to any athlete, when you talk about Ray Lewis, I always talk about Ray Lewis and Ed Reed from the Baltimore Ravens, because they were known as guys who were just film junkies. They studied the game. Ray Lewis was some people say he was an undersized linebacker, right? So what Ray Lewis lacked in size, he made up for in knowledge. Ed Reed, a very good, what was his position? Very good safety. And he was very intelligent too, on top of being a physically talented guy. But he knew the game. He studied the game, man. That's just what, when we watching it, we just see, oh, Ed Reed got an interception. But we don't know that Ed Reed might have watched like 10 or 15 hours worth of film just to get that one interception, because he noticed a tendency on that, something that Tom Brady always do, or something that Peyton Manning always do. But we'll just see the interception. We see the end result. We don't see Ray Lewis knowing that when they line up the offense, the other team line up a certain way, that they're going to run to this side, and then Ray Lewis all of a sudden shoot through the gap and he make a tackle. We just think it's all instincts, and he was fast enough to get over there. And it got to be the same thing with quarterbacks, right? Black quarterbacks. So with that being said, I'm going to play what Jason Whitlock says, and then I'm going to react to it.
Let's talk about where we agree and where I have not been shy about giving you credit. It's like, hey man, JB for 2 or 3 years has been coming on the show and on his own show saying, hey, quarterback play is at an all-time low. And JB was a guy that 2 or 3 years ago was coming on our show and saying, hey man, Patrick Mahomes is overrated. It's blah, blah, blah. And it's not that I'm ready to go there with you with Patrick Mahomes, but I have been like consistently saying, hey man, JB was right. The quarterback play is at an all-time low. And so here's what I did. And here's the conversation that fits me and my audience that may not perfectly fit JB and what he likes to talk about in his audience. But I've gone to like, hey man, all of this emphasis on diversity and black quarterback and all of these changes that I feel like they've made to make quarterback play easier so that they can meet the quotas that they need to serve their diversity goals. So this whole, and so that's, I looked at 2018. I only went that far back in terms of just making my point of like, hey man, look at how it's devolved just in 7 years. That in 2000, there's 19 guys throwing for 250 yards or more per game that started at least 8 games. And now we're down to 5. And I'm saying, and then let's call up the graphic where I pointed out the top teams this year, top records. And then if there were tiebreakers in terms of records, we went to point differential. And I showed you the quarterbacks and the teams that are having the most success. And again, this gets me blasted. This gets me called an Uncle Tom and a coon. But these guys started out the year talking about 16 quarterbacks. Our starting quarterbacks are going to be black guys in the NFL this year. And look at how much progress we've made. And black quarterbacks have taken over the league. And then I say, okay, here we are 14 games into the season. Look at this list. Look at the top teams. And look at the quarterbacks that are quarterbacking those teams. Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, Matt Stafford, Drake May, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones together in San Francisco, Justin Herbert, and Caleb Williams. And I'm like, all this black takeover, it's not at the top of the league. And again, it needs to be discussed. Well, why is that? What's going? We have all these black quarterbacks now, and everybody wants to point to racism and this and that, but and they want to champion it. And then black quarterbacks, we've tracked it all season, JB, because they started this discussion. Black starting quarterbacks have won 41% of their games this year in the NFL. And my argument it's not that they're black, it's not their skin color, it's the culture and the mindset of victimhood and challenging of authority. And as a coach, you should be able to speak to this. I feel like white quarterbacks that traditionally come from 2-parent families that have a dad that disciples them, those white quarterbacks are more apt to willingly submit to the vision, philosophy of the head coach than black quarterbacks that come.
All right, so he's saying that black kids don't want to listen to coaches, right? But again, my point is, if you know, that's the coach's fault, right? If you have a kid that's you know, when you're teaching these kids how to play football from the Pop Warner level, and you know that this position demands that you learn this skill, then that's on the coaches. You know, like that, it just don't make any sense to allow the kid to dictate how you teach them the game, because number one, they don't know the game. So it don't make any sense. So I think that, and Coach JB is going to get into it. Like Coach JB says that if you get a black quarterback and he is an exceptional athlete, like he's somebody who sets himself apart from everybody else, the coaches will get lazy and feel like we're going to just rely on his athleticism. I don't have to teach this kid the game, because it takes time to teach somebody how to play the game, like on a mental level, that quarterback position. But I'm not going to go for the fact that it's the culture that they come from. It's because that they, they're black or they come from a single parent household. Because once a kid leaves their house, they leave their household, they still have to conform to the team. Like once you on the field, like your mother is not out there, and so if you don't meet the criteria for that position, then you won't be able to play. That's on the coaches. You can't become a pilot because your mother, you come from a single parent household. You can't become an airline pilot because your mother says that's the job she wants you to have. You got to qualify for that job. You can't become a police officer just because that's what my mother said she want me to be a police officer. You got to go through the academy and qualify for that job. And if you dumb down that position, whatever the position is, whether it's an airline pilot, whether it's a police officer, if you do dumb down that position so you think you can get in, number one, you don't have to do it. That's number one. But if you do dumb down that position, then the agency and the organization that is hiring people that's not qualified, then they liable, like they are at risk. So that that they can't do that, right? So that's why I pushed back on him on Jason Whitlock when he tried to say, well, that's it's the culture, it's a single parent household and stuff like that. Like I don't care. I was raised in a single parent household, and kids, we were taught to have respect, say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and stuff like that. I'm not, we were taught that. It wasn't an option. I didn't get to call my mother by her first name. I was taught that, like her name, to me, she's mom, right? I'm not calling her by her. I know her first name, but I'm in my 50s and I still don't use her first name. And then I'm yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, right? So that, now if she allowed me to call her by her first name, then that's on her, right? That's just like my daughter. When she was, I think she's probably like about 2 years old, 3 years old. She called me by my first name. She seen me one day. She was like, "Hey, Mike," and her great grandmother corrected her. She said, "Hey, don't call him by his first name. He's dad to you." And then she looked at me and she said, "If I hear that girl calling you dad again, I'm gonna pop you and her," right? And so I knew that, and I already knew better because I wasn't raised like that. And I'm thinking I want to be the cool dad, but it's not about being the cool dad. It's about doing what's best for her, my daughter, and it's about doing what's best for me. I earned the right to be called dad. So, that's, so you can't blame it on the kid. And so let me get back to some more of what Jason Whitlock is saying, and as a matter of fact, the other guy, Coach JB is getting ready to talk.
These single mamas that are always telling them that they must rebel against authority. And so they never submit to a head coach. They always want to question a head coach. They always think they're smarter than the head coach. They're harder to coach, plain and simple, because they've been raised by their mama and not by a daddy. And it eventually shows up in their performance and in their ability to connect with the head coach, and it affects their performance.
All right, so with that being said, now I will agree that some things like a father can teach a son that a mother can't, right? But the basics, I'm talking about like being respectful and stuff like that. There's some things that, like it's definitely a benefit or an advantage to a kid to come from a two-parent household. So I'm not saying that, right? I know that some things that I needed to work on for myself because I was not fortunate enough to come up in a two-parent household. But my mother recognized that, and I got like 4 or 5 uncles, and I used them as examples of how I should act or how I should carry myself or how I should respond in certain situations. And my mother made sure that I knew that I had to pattern myself after my uncles and not her, so yeah, it's definitely an advantage when you come from a two-parent household.
That's the argument. That's the conversation we've been promoting over here.
Mine's going to shock a lot of people. I've said it, I've mentioned it before on your show, but I'll give you a totality. There's a reason why I don't coach anymore, and there's a reason why they're missing me in the coaching world. There's a reason why Nick Saban, Mike Krzyzewski, and so many others trying to get out of this current landscape. Number one is the white coach. And then, I don't play victim very often, but being from Compton, coaching majority, 90% of inner city black kids my entire life, never had a kid arrested after they left me, 260 kids, Division I, 28 in the NFL. And I fight back on this. Black kids will listen to a white coach before they'll listen to a black coach. Fact. Because they want the father figure to tell them the difference between right and wrong. But we have too many white coaches now accepting all this money and work.
All right, so before Coach JB go on any further, right? I never, because of where I grew up at, I never had any white coaches. Like I played basketball. I had a white coach in high school, right? But growing up in my neighborhood, like playing basketball, all those leagues, those house leagues and those different leagues that I played for when I growing up, all black coaches. And I listened to the black coaches, right? So and I agree that as a kid, you're looking for guidance, right? And so that's why I listen to my coaches. And like I said, it all stems from home, respecting your elders. They was my coaches, they was my elders, so I respected them. So to me, I only had one white coach. So, but that's his experience. Like, he coached a lot of black kids. But I think kids in general look to adults for guidance. And if you don't give that kid guidance, then I don't think that kid is going to respect you. Right. I had coaches teachers in high school who wouldn't let me play basketball until I got my grades up. And at the time, I was mad with the teacher. It was a white guy. His name was his name was Schomburg, Mr. Schomburg. He was a white guy. He didn't care nothing about basketball. He didn't care that I was like the star of the team. He wanted me to do his work and do the work that was required in that class. And he wouldn't give me a pass unless I caught up in all my grades and stuff like that. I thought he was a barbarian, right? But he turned out to be the one teacher that I respect the most, because everybody else, when you look at it, like basketball it's just a game, right? But education was he prioritized education over basketball, which I didn't. Everybody else might have thought they was doing me a favor by letting me play, which I appreciated that too. But in the long run, man, I needed that education more so than I needed to play basketball. So I'm just looking, as a kid, we were just looking for guidance and somebody, people who tell us what we need to know instead of, what we want to hear. So let me get back to Coach JB though.
Wins only and not the kid and the kid's future. So we get the number one athlete out of high school. We take him as a quarterback, as the 5-star, just to say that, oh, my wee-wee's bigger than yours, and I out-recruited you. Let's be honest. I bring him over here to Oregon. I bring him to Alabama. I bring him to whatever. I put him in there. And at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins getting on the podium yesterday and telling the world that's gone viral, oh, it's dumbed down now because defenses got smarter and offensive quarterbacks can't figure it out. No, what happens is we don't teach anymore. So now we get to the line of scrimmage. We don't demand the quarterback to do anything. We get up to there and we say, we run inside zone to the 3 technique. We run outside zone to the shade. Okay, that's our philosophy. We get up there and Lamar Jackson sees the 3 technique, it's zone check, and he runs it anyway. Because he can't opposite the call, because we haven't taught him the front. We haven't taught him rotation of coverage. We haven't taught him when one goes dead, who is the second read. We don't know who's hot, who's not. Where's the side adjust? We throw a card up. We give him a wristband that Shador dropped, by the way. And then we go, hey, this guy's a freak. He'll get me out of problems. He'll get me out of a bad call, Jason. We don't develop no more. We only care about getting the 5-star kid that's the best athletes, i.e. Lamar Jackson at Louisville during his Heisman campaign. Guess what? Bad call got made, and he made 4 people miss and went up the sideline. And guess what? The coach got an extension. He got paid. It wasn't because the play call. It's because you had the best athlete on the football field. Now what happens is, Jason.
All right, so just imagine that, right? That's what I'm saying. So coaches, adults have gotten lazy. You taking these kids, these 5-star athletes, And I know that these guys, like, they can learn if you teach them and you demand that of them. Look at Warren Moon. Like, look how good a quarterback Warren Moon was. Look how good a quarterback. What was the guy that Randall Cunningham was a really good quarterback. You know, the guy came after him, Donovan McNabb. Those are good quarterbacks, right? So you can, black quarterbacks can learn just like white quarterbacks can learn, but you have to require them of that. If I'm a kid and you tell me I don't have to do homework, in school, I'm not going to do homework if it's not required of me, right? So just imagine though, if you get an athlete like Lamar Jackson, who physically is exceptional, but then mentally on top of it, he knows that. And so, I don't know, man. And I think that, and sometimes, and I've seen it in basketball, like you might have a guy that is so physically dominant, so physically talented, that he feel like he don't have to study the game of basketball. And he don't know the game of basketball. All he knows is that he can jump higher than everybody. All he knows is that he can, he's faster than everybody. He got a quick first step. So he don't learn about angles. He don't learn how to shoot a teardrop jumper, because he's relying on his physical abilities. And you see a lot of guys who can't jump out the gym, who don't have foot speed, but can score on the guy who jumps out the gym, can score on the guy who has great foot speed. So, it's sometimes like your athleticism can be a curse, and then people who know the game, like I always speak about, like a very intelligent guard that I watched play all the time was Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell was not fast. I watched him growing up in our neighborhood. I watched him growing up. Sam Cassell was not fast, really wasn't a jumper. He couldn't jump out the gym. But this guy was like the best basketball player on the court. And I mean, he playing with some guys that are like jumping out the gym, guys, man. I mean, some really, really good basketball players, but he just knew the game. They call Sam, he's a savvy basketball player. Sam Cassell is a very intelligent basketball player. He understands angles. He knows the game mentally. And I always tell people, like, the mental part of any sport is the most important. We had somebody like what's the quarterback name? Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning studied the game. They say he used to listen to audio tapes of football games. Like, what kid what kid you got that's going to listen to some audio tapes of football games? Not even video, just audio. I don't know. And he did that, but he was just so much into studying the game. Same thing with Tom Brady. If you require these kids to study the game, because they're going to have to know that everybody, the athleticism can only carry you but so far, but your mind, you got to let kids know that your mind can carry you a lot further than your athleticism can, and so, but that's what you learn, but you got to learn that before it's too late.
Or the guy goes to the NFL, where Myles Garrett and Max Crosby live, and they're the same athlete as you are. So now, if you don't know football in totality, you have been shown up as a failure. You are now a failing quarterback, especially a black one, because you were failed by the coach in high school and college. You can say all you want, but I've done deep dives into this. It is a fact, because I never failed them. And guess what? I coached 19 of 21 years only having a black quarterback. 3 to the NFL, 21 Division I quarterbacks, 19 of those were black. So at the end of the day, none of them were arrested. All of them are successful, got their degrees. 13 of them are coaching Division I football currently. And I want to see anyone else's resume compared to that. I want to see current Division I coaches right now who get $3 to $10 million a year, who have literally failed the 5-star black athlete quarterback. And you tell me that we're not failing them at all-time high. Because the white quarterback, to your point, yeah, we can talk about, oh, he's cerebral and he understands the cover. He's been in a system his whole entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to your point, 2 parents paid for Youth Pop Warner, paid for all the camps, paid for all the clinics, did all the things going up. Now they understand the game in totality. But the black inner city kid is already ahead of them athletically. We get him over here. We don't teach him crap. We put up a sign of Stephen A. Smith and a rose, and that's the play. And we expect them to succeed in the NFL. Come on, man. We are felling these kids at all-time high because we care about the bag and winning games for us currently, not for their future. We want to win games and get a bigger job. We want to win games to save our job, get our family fed. The kid is a stopgap. Gets me wins, and I could care less about him in the NFL. But I'll sure claim him when he wins a Heisman. I'll sure claim him if he wins an MVP in Lamar Jackson. But guess what? Lamar Jackson's been the same Lamar Jackson since he left Louisville. He has not got better yet. Not 1 year has he improved. Mechanically, he's gotten worse. He doesn't understand the coverage. He don't know the front. You ever see him get up to the line of scrimmage, Jason, and check it? Oh, opposite. Easy. You don't see it no more. Football's so dumbed down. It is you either coach it or allow it, Jason. If you allow these kids and you think they're dumb, then guess what? They're going to be dumb. I never saw a kid. I never had a black kid not be able to understand the front, the coverage, and check a play and get me into the right one because I taught them, and they will listen if you do teach them.
JB,
see that's the whole point that I want to get to, right? You have to require that these quarterbacks know their job. Like, if you want to be a quarterback, then you got to know your job. You got to study the game. The white kids come from a system where you just can't cheat the game. You know, if your kid want to be a quarterback, you got to send them to the camps, like Coach JB said. You have to make sure that they understand like that position that they're playing, because when they get to that level where everybody on the field is an athlete, you know, and you got, like you said, Myles Garrett and you got Micah Parsons out there, and these guys know the angles. They know, you know, they're not as fast as Lamar, but they know the angles, and when they get to him, you know, it's all bad intentions, right? So you can't just say that, you know, oh, it's the black athletes and you blaming the single mothers. You can't do that. You can make them the scapegoats, but you wouldn't be correct in doing that. Like Jason Whitlock say, that's why I push back on that. You know, these kids, when you have, and Warren Moon is not the only guy who I know who was a really good quarterback, but I mean, the requirement of the job is the requirement of the job. And so it's almost like you can set a black quarterback up for failure. The NFL could, like, if you bring a kid in who don't know the game, like Vince Young, like, is his name Vince Young? The guy who played at Texas, man, as a quarterback, he was a beast in college, right? Then you had Cam Newton, who was a beast in college, but these guys were physical specimens. And the NFL is just so much different. You know, everybody, like if you playing at Texas or you playing, who was the other quarterback I just mentioned? Vince Young or Cam, I think he played at Auburn. If you play somewhere like that and you was exceptional at a college level and you still the exceptional athlete, you still got to learn the game, because at that next level, you'll have a short career, because you can't maintain, you're not going to be able to run a 4.3 throughout your whole NFL career. I don't care if you're running back. I don't care if you're quarterback, wide receiver. You're going to slow down. And then you probably only take about 5 or 6 years for them to slow you down. Michael Vick, Michael Vick, even if you took an angle on Michael Vick, he could still outrun you. That's how dominant Michael Vick was. Vince Young, Cam Newton. Cam Newton was just big, strong, and fast. but you can't. Cam Newton couldn't run dudes after 4 or 5 years of running into guys, man. It don't work. I remember watching Earl Campbell when Earl Campbell played for the Houston Oilers. Earl Campbell, go back and watch highlights of Earl Campbell with the Houston Oilers. Earl Campbell, when his first 2-3 years in the league, 4 years, maybe 4 good years he had in the league with the Houston Oilers, he only lasted 6 years in the NFL with his style of play. And if you look at him now, the condition that he's in now, he's still paying for that. He gave the NFL 6 of the best years I ever seen any running back, besides probably like Barry Sanders. And he's paying for that now. You know, he probably in his 60s now. He's in a wheelchair and he use a walker and a cane when he, it's all about learning the game, playing the game up here instead of playing it, with your athleticism. I don't care if it's basketball, baseball, football. You got to know the game. And sometimes these coaches do cheat these kids because these kids are exceptional athletes. And you think you will roll the ball out there and them kids will save your job, they'll save your career, help you get raises and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I just think it's not the kids' fault. It's the coaches and the organizations that allow kids to just strictly rely on their athleticism. So but once a kid find out, then once you get of age and you find out that you behind the 8 ball, man, it's up to you to learn how to play that sport. I see Lamar Jackson as a Baltimore Ravens, like he's slowing down. Like guys are catching Lamar Jackson. He's like 7-8 years into the NFL. Guys are catching him now. He's not breaking away from nobody. He's not as fast. He's not quick like he used to be. He not, the first 2 years he was running past people with ease, making it look easy. But now in year 7, those are the years like you need to learn how to play the game of football mentally. So that's my take on it. Y'all make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I will check you all out in the next video. Peace.